I was actually surprised initially that AI was being used in the wine industry. I was expecting a typical case where AI is being used for advertising or for analyzing what kind of wine a person would like. There's actually all this research going on into using AI to grow grapes. You can have robots taking pictures and analyzing where the grapes get enough water.
All aspects of the process. And if you imagine the future 10 years from now, just pure science fiction, if you will, how do you think the wine industry might be using AI as it develops?
It would be using different machines at the vineyards. If you can program drones to fly and take pictures, that relieves you of the whole issue with the soil being compacted.
I could see a specialty drone for chasing starlings away, and then another drone for leading the deer back into the forest. Do you have a thirst to learn about wine? Do you love stories about wonderfully obsessive people, hauntingly beautiful places, and amusingly awkward social situations? Well, that's the blend here on the Unreserved Wine Talk podcast. I'm your host, Natalie McLean, and each week I share with you unfiltered conversations with celebrities in the wine world, as well as confessions from my own tipsy journey as I write my third book on this subject. I'm so glad you're here. Now pass me that bottle, please, and let's get started. Welcome to episode 243. How can you use artificial intelligence, AI, to get wine and food pairing advice? Will AI make wine styles and flavors less diverse? And will AI replace wine writers? Oh my gosh, what a nightmare scenario that one would be. In today's episode, you'll hear the stories and tips that answer those questions and more in part 2 of my chat with Dina Blikshteyn, a lawyer who specializes on how artificial intelligence and machine learning is changing the wine world. You don't have to have listened to part 1 from last week first, but I hope you'll go back if you missed it after you finish this one. So even though my new memoir, Wine Witch on Fire, Rising from the Ashes of Divorce, Defamation, and Drinking Too Much, takes place during my worst vintage, personally and professionally, I didn't want to lose my love of wine and the people in the industry. As I write in my book, most of my experience in the wine industry has been positive, filled with moments of sensual delight, creative challenge, and human kindness. It allowed me to explore the world, traveling to places I never could as a child. It also made me more worldly, experiencing cultures so different from my small town upbringing. In turn, I believe I've broadened the minds of those who read my work. Many of them, including me, would never pick up a thick tome on agriculture, commerce, history, politics, law, religion, relationships, or sexism. But they learn about those topics through my quote-unquote wine books. I think you could create a liberal arts degree with wine as the hub connecting the spokes of just about all human endeavor. Do you ever think of wine that way? Let me know. Here's a review from Susan Bush in New Zealand. I loved her latest book. It's beautifully written, well-planned, humorous yet serious, on a subject that is so relevant these days. What happened to her is unbelievable, yet sadly these days it is often the norm. Social media has a lot to answer for. It's wonderful to read how she not only overcame the despicable behavior of some others, but also rose above and left them on the back foot. So lovely to know that her son's relationship with her is strong and that she has her own life on a great plane as well. I wish her and her family all the very best today and every day. Thank you, Susan. If you've read the book, I'd love to hear from you at natalie@nataliemclean.com. If you haven't got your copy yet and would like to support it and this podcast, please order it from any online book retailer, no matter where you live. Every little bit helps spread the message. I'll put a link in the show notes to all retailers worldwide at nataliemclean.com/243. Okay, on with the show. Do you think there's any risk that using AI tools will make wine taste more uniform because there'll be so much data and new learning that, especially from different sources, that wine may, I don't know, lose its soul or lose the human intuition part of it? I mean, certain university programs have been accused of leaning too far into science and not enough on the art of winemaking. Do you think you could see something similar happening here?
I can definitely see it, right? I can also see it more if everyone are using the same model. If you have 10 different wineries using 10 different models, they'll be trained on different data. The wine will taste differently.
True.
On the other hand, there's also a human component to it. AI can give you a result. You don't have to take that result. You can have a
True.
human contribution, whatever it is, to that result to make something more unique. And I think that's where the part of making the wine also comes in. AI can do a lot of analytics to make your job simpler, but that final component, that final change that the winery can make may not be replicated by AI.
Yes, absolutely. So now there are weeding robots and others that microspray plants and detect disease. Do you think this will cut down on the amount of fungicides and herbicides and pesticides used in vineyards?
It absolutely can, because all that detection can just occur earlier. And that's a good thing about the machines, right? They can go through the
Yes.
vineyard, they don't get tired. So you program them to go through the vineyard, that's what they'll do. They'll go through the vineyard and they'll detect the diseases or whatever else they're programmed to do. So I think they definitely can increase in detecting something earlier. Whereas with humans, we get tired, it may be hot, it may be raining, whatever it is, right? The detection just may not occur as quickly.
Yes, that's true. No lunch breaks for AI. Do you think it could also help more vineyards to go organic because they're being so micromanaged at the individual vine level?
It can. I don't see why
Possibility.
not. But
Yeah.
a lot of it is also a business decision, right? AI, all those machines, it's a tool. It's an extra tool that the wineries can use.
Yeah. Do you see any parallels between what's happening now with these AI machines in the vineyard and sort of customized medicine where drugs are developed for each person, perhaps based on their own unique DNA?
Yes, because on a very basic level, it could be the same or similar AI model that's just trained on different data. You want the model to perform in the winery, you train it on the wine related data. You want it to perform in healthcare, you'll be training it on different types of data that's more specific to human health.
Sure. Is AI being used at all to detect fraud and counterfeit bottles in the wine world?
Well, AI is definitely being used to detect fraud. And AI can't really say this is fraud, this is not fraud, right? What it can say is, I've looked at all these patterns, I looked at all these data, and I detected an anomaly. Something is wrong, something is different.
Right.
Once AI detects that, whether it's a counterfeit bottle, whether it's the shape or the color or the sticker, it's going to be up to the human to further examine it.
Right.
So where the value add is, right? AI can look at a lot of data much quicker and just identify those anomalies much quicker. So it can condense this huge set of data to a smaller set of data. And then the human comes in and actually say, well, this looks like counterfeit and this is not.
Right. Almost reminds me of, radiologists interpreting the results. It could probably compress that process and then narrow down the field for the expert to come in and say, oh, yes, there's a problem here. We need to do more tests.
And, it's actually a great example, Natalie, because there are AI analytics that go into radiology right now. Yeah, it's maybe off topic, but it's the same analysis.
Yeah.
You can have a radiologist to do an analysis on an X-ray, and you can put that same X-ray through an AI model and see if they come up with the same result.
Huh. Wow. I guess radiologists should beware of their jobs too, except the best ones. Oh boy. And is AI being used to detect smoke taint from wildfires?
It can, right?
It can, again?
It can.
And how would it do that?
So it's going back to data, just like anything else, right? You
Sure.
have wine with smoke taint. You have wine without smoke taint. You do the chemical breakdown on it.
Okay.
You pass it through the model. And you train the model to tell you, is there a smoke taint or is there no smoke taint?
Yeah, I'm curious if it will become more refined in the future to know when smoke taint is not perceptible to consumers, but it is perceptible, it's existing in the wine. And if it can predict things like this will express itself as full-blown smoke taint, don't sell this wine, versus this is going to remain below noticeable levels, this is okay to put to market, presuming that there are no health issues related. But it'd be interesting.
I mean, to me, it sounds just like a perfect, almost like a fine-tuning example, where you have your ready-made model and then you give it data, right? You train it on data of wines that have smoke taint, whether it's the chemical composition or whether it's another criteria, right? And the
Sure.
wine that doesn't, right? And the degree. After that, after you train that model, all you have to do is pass the wine through it and you get a very nice classifier. You can have yes or no, right? Simple. Or if you want to have like on a more granular level, is it yes or no? Is this a maybe? Maybe this is good enough. So you can sort of train that model to give you different classifications.
Interesting. And maybe in the future, again, what to do to fix it, if anything, if it can be fixed, some sort of taint or other faults. So we've seen provocative headlines. Can AI really taste wine? Is this simply cataloging thousands of flavor components based on human input and then, for example, predicting which foods might pair best with a particular wine?
I think that's how you would start, right? And it depends how granular you want the model to be. Do you want to train the model on user experience? Certain types of wine will go with certain types of food. Certain people like certain types of wines. And based on that, you'll do a prediction. Or do you want to go into a more granular level? Actually do the breakdown, go into like the chemical breakdown of the wine, go into a chemical breakdown of the palate, and then train it on that data. I mean, regardless how granular you will get, yes, the model will tell you like you will probably like these 5 wines with these 5 types of food.
And so you've mentioned previously in an article that you wrote that Meredith Corporation, which is a large publishing company, which also owns allrecipes.com, partnered with St. Michel Wine Estates to pair wines and recipes for site visitors. So how is this, I guess perhaps it comes back to the same answer, but I've seen lots of surveys online where they ask you about your taste preferences. If you like tea, then you'll tend to like Pinot Noir. If you like coffee, then go for Cabernet with the oak aging. How is this AI different? Does it just have lots more input than those simpler surveys, or is there any other difference?
I think that's really it. But part of it is more complex inputs or more complex training data or breaking down training data. What I think what you've described is more of just a rules-based approach.
Right.
Whereas AI is just being trained on a lot more data to give you more granular results.
Sure.
It's another way of doing things.
Yeah, absolutely. And are the actual pairings that Meredith and St. Michel generate through their AI, are they copyrighted or just the human design webpage on which they appear? So in other words, could someone take all the pairings that are generated on the All Recipes website and just put them on a different human designed webpage?
Yeah, that is a very loaded question.
I like to ask loaded questions.
So the way the law is right now, and I wouldn't say it's a law, this just came out of the United States Copyright Office, I believe, either in March or in May, I don't remember. They essentially said that anything generated by an AI model cannot be copyrighted. That's their guidance. It's not statutory yet, but that's what they're saying. If AI model created it, you can't copyright it.
Because copyright has to be attributable to a human?
That's right. You have to have an author.
Okay.
But of course, there is a but. So if something is generated by AI, such as a recipe, if there is a human contribution on top of it, you can copyright that human contribution. Okay. And then when you file for a copyright, you have to specify this has been created by AI and this has been created by an author.
So it still leaves open that question that someone could take the pairings potentially until it's tested in court and just put them on another website.
Right. Unless, you add a human contribution and you change the pairings a little bit. You add something else.
Oh, yeah. You could tweak the final layer.
Right. The final layer.
Huh. Okay. Do you think that AI could eventually replace wine writers, especially those who are just mostly review wines, like give a straight description? It's got blackberries, it's got cassis, it's got whatever, or it pairs with X, X, and X. I'm not talking about long form story, narrative driven writers, but do you think it could replace largely the traditional wine critic?
I think it may to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anyone who used ChatGPT has tested that theory where
Yes.
you have a writer's block or you're trying to write something and you put it into ChatGPT and it'll spit out a paragraph for you.
Yeah, true.
But how perfect is that paragraph?
That's
Are you
right.
just going to copy and paste it or are you still going to revise and modify it?
Yeah.
Right. So, to answer your question, can it replace food critics? Yes. Can it really replace really good food critics who have a humongous knowledge of wine? Probably not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see two areas where the human intervention would come in at the end, and that would be fact checking for accuracy, because we know at least ChatGPT will just often, not often, I don't know what the frequency is, but will give you factual errors, and then the finessing of the language itself, which can be a bit stilted.
Right. And there's actually a story with this.
Oh,
We
yeah?
had an attorney who used ChatGPT to side check cases, and
Okay.
ChatGPT created a case that was later submitted to the court, and the other side caught it.
Oh,
Right. So now it's became, I understand it's a human error, but AI is a tool like anything else.
wow. So this was a totally made up case. It didn't
This was
exist.
a totally made up case that was cited to the court.
That's
Right?
crazy.
So
Wow.
the attorney do it intentionally? Probably not. Was it on the attorney to check that this is a real case and do something more than asking ChatGPT, is this a real case? Absolutely.
Yes.
We all have tools. Doesn't mean those tools are right 100% of the time, whether it's AI or not. And it's, at least in my profession, it's always on the attorney to check that something is correct.
Sure. Well, I did a test with ChatGPT and I said, write me a wine book. And it started with the table of contents, the essential grapes, the wine regions, and it just kept going. And it was like, wow, it was incredible. And it wrote a book, like the whole book. I don't know how many minutes, but it didn't take long.
Yeah, so I mean, it'll write really great at a third grade level, maybe at the sixth grade level. But
Yes.
I think for creative writing,
Yes.
the question becomes, is it creative enough? Because at least ChatGPT, I mean, it's trained on books, it's trained on documents, it's trained on all this literature, right? But then there's still a question, how creative can it be?
And again, goes back to those inputs. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. More creative than a human. You may get there. I mean, I'm still a believer that there's a human contribution to whatever AI is creating.
Oh, let's hold on to that hope. It'd be interesting to say, write me a wine book in the style of Charles Dickens with a little bit of Bronte thrown in to see what they would do based on books out of copyright. But anyway, rabbit hole. I just love thinking about the what if scenarios here. So, have there been any instances in the wine world with AI that have led to any sort of big mistakes or anything like that?
I mean, I haven't really heard of any. I think if there is a mistake, unless it becomes public, it may be suppressed. So
Sure.
we'll never know. But at the same time, look, if you're experimenting with AI, it will make mistakes, either because the data set is incomplete or, for whatever reason. I'll give you an example with a Tesla, right?
Okay.
So this was on the news. You have a Tesla driving on the highway, right? It brakes because there is a setting sun, right? It confused that setting sun with a yellow light.
Oh.
Right? I mean, how often can that happen? But
Wow.
when you're driving, apparently it can, right? And that's a test case that you normally would not account for, but it happens.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the same as any technology. Can something like that happen at a winery? Like, absolutely, right? You may not recognize that a vine is a vine just because there is glare. And you can have a machine go over that vine.
Wow. That's a good example. And what about for those seeking to protect their IP that they developed via AI? Is the answer developing a trademark for that IP that was developed that way, like the way Apple has done with Siri and Amazon with Alexa?
in terms of IP, right, there's different ways you can protect products. There's copyrights, trademarks, patents, and trade secrets. And based on the technology you use, I guess some forms of protection may be better than others, right? So if your value is in the data and not in the model itself, I mean, trade secret may be the best protection you can have. You're not protecting the output, you're protecting the what's going into the model, right? It's not just the data set, it's also which data inside that data set you want to have the model weigh more or less, right? So if the model is doing a recommendation on how to create a bottle of wine based on data, right, that may be where the trade secret is, or at least that data should be protected with a trade secret.
Yeah, I can see that being applicable to wine because all the proprietary blends and how long do you let those grapes hang before you harvest, that's all, I would think, trade secrets.
Right, exactly. If you're protecting the brand, trademark protection, right, especially if a vineyard is well known or the wine is well known. So those bottles of wine that are being sold in the stores, that may be more amenable to trademark protection.
Right.
Recipes, wine pairings, at least the human component to it, that's copyright protection.
Okay.
If you want to talk about patents, the machines that go through the vineyard, the analytics, how they take pictures, potentially the AI models themselves, that may be more amenable to patent protection.
Wow, different tools for different
tools
use
for
cases.
different things.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you think AI will change the tasting room of the future beyond sort of collecting consumer data and trying to customize the experience for people who visit? Other innovative changes you see happening?
It may create a different layout for the room.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually a lot of research going on in this space too, sort of creating a virtual world that's a replica of a physical world.
Okay.
And using that virtual world to create a room or a tasting, right? And everything that would either enhance the user experience or potentially have people buy more wine or more certain types of wine, right? And then transform that back into the physical world.
Oh,
So
wow.
I
Could
think
iterate back and forth.
back and forth. So there may be a lot of analytics that are going on, right? Just on a different level.
Sure. If you had people using Apple's new headset, augmented reality or virtual reality, and then get that data feeding in how you, as you say, design your tasting room or the flow of it, and then vice versa, use what people actually do once they get to your physical tasting room to change how you create your VR or AR models. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, it actually goes a step further. Right now, you can just have a device, right? It'll take dimensions of a room or whatever is in the room. You transport it into your virtual room. You can play with it, see what works, see what doesn't, see what can be a business value add, right? And then you transform it right back.
Wow. Cool. What's the most surprising insight you've discovered about AI and wine?
I was actually surprised initially that AI was being used in the wine industry.
Oh, really?
I mean, I was expecting, I guess, your typical case where AI is being used for advertising or for analyzing what kind of wine a person would like. I was surprised by the other component, that there's actually all this research going on into using AI to grow grapes. Yeah, because when I first read about you can have robots taking pictures and analyzing where the grapes get enough water, I mean, to me, that was eye-opening.
Yeah, for sure. All aspects of the process. And if you imagine the future 10 years from now, just pure science fiction, if you will, how do you think the wine industry might be using AI as it develops?
I mean, I would think it would be using different machines at the vineyards, and whether, those are actual machines that drive through the vineyard or, take it up a step further, whether it's drones. Because if you can program drones to fly and take pictures, I mean, that sort of relieves you of the whole issue with the soil being compacted.
Yes.
And I think you're sort of starting to see some of it now, especially when you have parades. You have drones being very creative, where they can make different sculptures in the air. It's the same technology, if you think about it, right? Can we use that in the vineyards? Probably. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
is it cost prohibitive? Probably. But it doesn't mean that in the next 10 years, the cost won't come down as well.
Yeah. Wow. I could see the drones, like there'd be a specialty drone for chasing starlings away, and then another drone for, I don't know, leading the deer back into the forest. Cool. That's fascinating. Dina, let's just do a quick lightning round to wrap up here. Do you have a favorite wine book?
I don't have a wine book, but I have a favorite wine movie.
Oh, which one?
So I love Walk in the Clouds.
Ah, with Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves, I think it's the mid-90s that it came out. What resonated with me was that whole crushing grape scene.
Yes.
Where they're all in trying to crush the wine.
Yeah, it's very sensual. They're all in those big vats, and the women have their dresses hoisted up to their thighs. Right. And there's music, and it's very seemingly traditional.
Yeah, it was such a beautiful scene.
It is very sensory rich. Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a most useful wine gadget you've discovered?
I actually do, and I have it right here.
Oh, you have it there.
So this is my electric wine opener.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and I love it because this again goes to, my kids teasing me because every time I try to open the bottle of wine manually, either the cork will get stuck or something will break. So my husband actually got this for me.
Oh, how nice. Electric wine opener. Yep.
It's been great.
Good. We'll put a link in the show notes.
It's very easy to open the wine, especially if you have a large gathering. You can have several bottles open. It's painless and it works.
Absolutely. Your opener is key. If you entertain or even if you write about wine, you could develop the equivalent of carpal tunnel syndrome if you don't have the right tools.
That's very true. Here you just need an electrical outlet, so you need to keep it charged.
There you go. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes if people are curious as to what gadget that is. If you could share a bottle of wine with any person outside the wine world, living or dead, who would that be? And maybe even what wine would you share?
For me is sort of like a loaded question.
Another one.
And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So we had an incident in my daughter's school today. Today this week, where a teacher got fired, and she was an excellent teacher, essentially for having breast cancer.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yes, and what they're trying to do right now is make it seem like she wasn't good enough, like she was not a great teacher, right? Notwithstanding the fact that there were over 50 parents who signed a petition about how great she was.
Wow.
So if you're asking me who I'd like to have a glass of wine with this week, I would say it would be her.
Oh, how nice. Wow. Well, I hope she makes it through. Yeah. It sounds like she's got a lot of support, so that's good.
Definitely from the parents.
Yes, I would hope that would matter most. Last question. If you could put up a billboard in downtown Manhattan, what would it say?
It would have something with AI and a glass of wine.
And it would keep iterating. It would keep changing. So there wouldn't be just one message, right?
Right. It would be like one of those picture frames where the picture constantly changes.
Oh, yes. That's very AI-ish. Right. Yes. That's great.
And then, my gosh, we'll analyze, which picture the people looked at more or less. And
of course, what got most attention. I love it. As we wrap up our conversation, Dina, is there anything you wanted to mention that we haven't covered?
No, Natalie, I should like to thank you for having me on this show. This has been fantastic.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I'm talking about my two favorite things, AI and wine.
Yes, absolutely. I think I'm a geek after your own heart, too. I love both tech and wine. How can people find you or get in touch with you online?
Finding me is very easy. You just need to Google my name and I will come up.
Okay.
Because I'm on the firm's website. I'm also writing a lot of articles in the AI space. So if you Google me, I'm very easy to find.
Dina Blikshteyn.
That's right.
Right. And we'll put that in the show notes too, the spelling and all, and a link to your website, of course. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time here today. And I look forward to when we can chat again.
Yeah, me too, Natalie. And again, thank you for having me on this podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. All right. Cheers. Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed my chat with Dina. Here are my takeaways. Number one, I was interested to learn about how AI can give food and wine pairing tips, but I am immensely relieved that AI won't be replacing me anytime soon. Number 2, used in the right way, AI can make wine styles and flavors more diverse. It can expand them if the tool is used to make wine better. And number 3, I was fascinated with her description of how AI is being used to grow grapes and many aspects of the winemaking process. Now, it'll be interesting to see if the drones become a common sight flying over vineyards. Maybe they'll invent one to chase away annoying tourists. Just the pesky ones, of course. In the show notes, you'll find the full transcript of my conversation with Dina, links to her website, the video version of these conversations on Facebook and YouTube Live, and where you can order my book online now, no matter where you live. That's all in the show notes at nataliemclean.com/243. Email me if you have a sip, tip, or question at natalie@nataliemclean.com. If you missed episode 52, go back and take a listen. I chat about visiting Burgundy as well as tasting Barolo with Matt Cause. I'll share a short clip with you now to whet your appetite. I'm asking the questions the reader would love to ask, but that person is not going to get in to see Domaine Romani Conti. And the only reason, by the way, Matt, that I would get in to see Domaine Romani Conti is that Aubert de Villaine and his like recognize how many readers I bring with me. It's not me, it's the readership that I bring with me. And so I'm trying to ask the questions they'd be dying to ask. And even if they were there, maybe they'd be too embarrassed to ask. So I'm a very, very nosy person, but I'm also very shy. And so writing has given me the cover of being able to ask people things like, well, what is your greatest failure? What'd you learn from it? Those kinds of things that can be uncomfortable if you just sort of turned to someone at a dinner party and started down that road. If you liked this episode, please email or tell one friend about it this week, especially someone you know who'd be interested in the wines, tips, and stories we shared. You won't want to miss next week when we chat with Dr. Winnie Bowman, an international wine and spirit judge as well as a Cape Master. She joins me from her home in Camps Bay, South Africa. Thank you for taking the time to join me here. I hope something great is in your glass this week, perhaps a wine delivered to you by a drone. You don't want to miss one juicy episode of this podcast, especially the secret, full-bodied bonus episodes that I don't announce on social media. So subscribe for free now at nataliemclean.com/subscribe. Meet me here next week. Cheers.